it's Angela with the Mount Airy Public Library. Welcome to our next fairy tale told by storyteller Brack Llewellyn. I'm very excited to hear this one. It's one of my favorites. It's called The 12 Dancing Princesses. All right, I'm going to let Brack get started and I'll be over here dancing. Talk to you later.
All right, everybody gather around close. Invite the grown-ups in too. They need to hear this story as well. This is The 12 Dancing Princesses. It's a Grimm Brothers fairy tale, and it's a very good one, as Angela said. See, once there was a king, and this king had 12 daughters, all princesses, of course, because they were daughters of a king. Now, they all slept in a huge room in the castle, each in her own bed. And the king was very careful about his daughters. He wanted nothing to happen to them. So every night when they went to bed, he would lock the door so no one could get in or out. But there was a mystery. You see, every morning when they would come to wake the princesses up for breakfast, they would look under their beds at their dancing shoes, and each daughter had a pair of dancing shoes, and they would notice that these dancing shoes had been worn through and seemed dirty, as though they'd been dancing in them for hours and hours, and yet they were supposed to have been in their beds. But there was no way they could get out of their room and out of the castle. It was a mystery, and the king was very puzzled by it. He was so puzzled that he put out a challenge to anyone who could solve this mystery. Find out why the daughters' dancing shoes were being worn and worn through when they were locked up and asleep in their room and in their beds. Well, a number of young princes came along to try, and the king told them, "If you succeed, you may have your choice of any of my daughters as your wife. But if you fail, we will banish you from the kingdom." You know what banish means? Banish means you have to leave and you can't come back. Well, each of these young princes tried. They tried their best, and each one of them failed, one at a time, one at a time, one at a time. And they were all banished from the kingdom. So the mystery went on, and eventually the young men stopped trying because they didn't want to be banished. No one could figure out how the princesses were leaving in the middle of the night to dance and found in their beds the next morning. There was no way out of their room. About this time along came an old soldier coming home from the war. He was an older man, and he was looking for some way to make some money and to establish himself in the kingdom. He heard about the challenge, and he thought he might be smart enough to figure it out. But he knew something that the young princes didn't know. Someone would have to be inside that great room where the princesses sleep to find out what was happening at night. You couldn't just wait outside the door or wait outside the castle. Something was going on in the room. But how to do that without being noticed? One day, as the old soldier, was walking in the woods trying to figure out what he would do, he came across a woman trapped in a pond. She was clinging to a rock, an outcropping of rock, and she called out to him, saying that she couldn't swim, and if he would save her, she would give him a reward. Well, the old soldier was a helpful man, so he dove into the water and pulled the woman up onto his back and swam to the shore and saved her from the pond. And she did reward him. She said, "I have magic. I have quite a bit of magic. So I'm going to give you something that no one else can." She gave him a cloak. It was a beautiful cloak of the finest wool, very finely woven. It was black, but around the collar there was some gold braid, very fine, rich-looking gold. She said, "This cloak is magical. When you put it on and you touch the gold braid, you will become unseen by anyone. You will be invisible. And for as long as you're inside the cloak, no one can see you. When you wish to become visible again, you simply touch the gold braid a second time." Well, the old soldier was very impressed by all this, a magical cloak. And then it dawned on him this was what he needed to help him solve the mystery. The old man presented himself to the king and was welcomed into the court, and told the king he thought he could solve the mystery of his daughter's worn-through dancing shoes. The king was open to this idea and told the old soldier to proceed, but not to harm his daughters. And the old man said, "Oh, of course, I would never do such a thing." But that night, before the princesses went to bed in their great room in the castle, the old soldier crept into the room into the corner, wrapped himself in the cloak, and touched the collar, the gold braid on the collar, and disappeared from sight. The princesses came to bed that night completely unaware there was anyone in the room, and went to bed dutifully as they were supposed to. But then, about midnight, they woke up, and they got up one by one, and very quietly they put on their finest dresses, and they pulled on their dancing shoes from under their beds, and then they opened a door in the floor of their room, a door that only they knew about. And one by one they popped through that door and down through the castle, and the old soldier followed them, unseen. They crept out of the castle and across the countryside with the old soldier behind them, and he followed them all the way to the shore of a great lake not too far from the castle. On the shore of the lake there were 3 great trees. One had leaves that looked as though they were made of gold. One had leaves that looked as though they were spun from silver. The third tree had leaves that shone like diamonds. Unseen by the princesses, the old man plucked a leaf from each tree to prove that he'd been there. And then he watched as 12 boats came across the lake with 12 young men, and a princess stepped into each boat, and the old man crept onto the last boat, unseen. And then the 12 young men rowed the boats back across this great lake to the other side, where stood this magnificent hall, much like this one. A beautiful place full of lights and great arches and huge windows, and there was music and there was food. And the 12 princesses and the young men danced all night long until their shoes were danced through. And then as dawn broke, the 12 young men rowed the princesses back across the lake with the old soldier secretly on one of the boats. And then the girls ran back to the castle, back through their secret door into their room, put their shoes under their bed, changed their clothes, and got back in bed before anyone could awaken them and reveal their secret. Well, the old soldier didn't go back in the room. He had all the proof he needed to solve the mystery. He touched the collar of the cloak, making himself invisible again, and taking his 3 leaves, he went back to his own room to wait for morning. The next day he went to the king and said, "I have solved the mystery of your dancing princesses." And he showed him the 3 leaves. He said, "These leaves are from trees down by the lake ashore." And he told him the story of the 12 young men in the boats and how they ferried the girls across the lake, and they danced all night. Well, the king was pretty upset. He didn't mind his daughters dancing, but he certainly didn't want them creeping out of the castle without permission in the middle of the night. So he called them before him, and he scolded them, and they confessed to what they had been doing. And he punished them. He told them they couldn't go anywhere for an entire month. They had to stay in the castle for an entire month. They were grounded, I guess you would say. But when the month was over, the king decided he loved his daughters so much he really couldn't deny them the opportunity to dance, as much as they loved to do so. So he began to stage dances in another great hall in his own castle, with food and music, and he even invited the 12 young men who had ferried the girls across the lake to come dance with him. So they got to continue to dance and wear their dance shoes through. Oh, and the old soldier, he indeed did marry the daughter of his choice, the oldest one, because she was closer to his age, and they had a very long and happy life together. Now, what did I learn from this story? Well, I learned that you really should ask permission if you're going to do something, especially if there's someone you need permission from, whether it's your parents or anyone. And if you love to dance, then dance. The opportunity is always there, whether you're ferried across a lake or simply dancing in your own room. That is the story of the 12 dancing princesses. And as always, you have been a wonderful audience. We hope you're enjoying our fairy tales. If you like them, please send us a comment. There will be many more to come. Thank you.